Hello, everyone. Today's guest is Dr. Roopali Sircar Gaur. She's a professor of English in Delhi. She was a professor of English in Delhi University. Ma'am is also a poet, a travel writer, and a social justice activist. Ma'am comes from a military family. Her father was in the military. Her husband is a veteran soldier, and she writes poems about soldiers and war-related themes, among others. Welcome, ma'am, to the show.
Thank you so much, Anita, for inviting me. I'm so honored.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, can you read us some of your poems? That would be absolutely delightful.
Okay, I'll read a poem that I wrote. It'll take a bit of time, I think. This is called I'm Kali because, Kali is the goddess that everybody keeps feeling very scared about. But this is where I am not writing about Kali, but I'm writing about myself.
Right.
I'm Kali. Kali is the black goddess. Among all the fair ones, she is like me, the dark one, fierce and angry. With stained tongue and the 52 monster heads strung around her neck, like the red ruby necklace my mother gifted me when I turned 18. Kali's many hands hold a trident, a sharp khadaga, the blood-swathed head of Daruka, and a conch to call to war and victory. Like me, Kali is the chosen one. I severed those heads one by one. They were heads that didn't want mine to grow. Heads full of diktats to dwarf me. They drew chalk circles around me to contain me and forbid me to taste the apple of knowledge. They made me wear iron shorts and a chastity belt, wrapping me like an Egyptian mummy in black satin, and I could not feel the touch or warmth of the morning sun. Those heads gave me a rolling pin and snatched away my pen. Kali is the potential and the possibility of destruction, of creation, death, and time, which is Kal. She stands for justice and equality, naked and satiated. Attired in black tresses, a prostrate Shiva under her anklet-clad feet upon him. I am Kali, the indestructible woman. I'm not black. I'm just the other side of the moon. I come in many colors and live in many places. You can find me in all the spaces, and you can hear my diverse voices. I'm naked, and I'm not satiated. Yes, I'm hungry, and I'm angry. Thank you.
Oh, that's brilliant. There are so many levels of meaning in that poem. That's amazing, ma'am. That's a lovely poem.
And there's another one that I wrote recently. There's so much of, sadness. I'm very connected to the deprivation around me,
Right.
I always feel the irony of life and the deprivation because I think I grew up, when India was a very socialist country in the sense that we were very concerned about others. I don't know, It's not so much now, but in that situation, we were very privileged. And that privilege also gave us a feeling that we have to share this privilege. We cannot just enjoy it alone. This privilege is meant for sharing. So I would feel that if I have a washing machine and my neighbor doesn't have one, I tell her, okay, why don't you send your clothes across? I'll get them washed in my washing machine. That kind of feeling. So I inhale sadness is a poem I just recently wrote. I inhale sadness. It seems to float in with the fog, collecting soot and smoke from half-lit chulas, plastic bottles and empty packets, pieces of cardboard stuffed inside the dying fire. A kettle of tea left to boil, last night's rotis cold and dry. The green chili to keep the chili away, shining like parrots' wings. There is sadness that comes with hunger. longing of the body for sustenance, searching for heat to keep away the cold. They can only be a feeding off of bodies inside, cramped trampoline roofs. The mud splattered caked with cow dung inhales the stench of loneliness and acrid acceptance.
Right. That's another poem that has several layers
There
of
is a
meaning.
sadness that comes with hunger, longing of the body for sustenance. I inhale the stench of loneliness and acrid acceptance, a futility dipped in a mug of tea. So this I feel, that sometimes we are so depressed, and why are we depressed? There's no reason.
Yes.
It's coming
Yes.
to us in the air, somewhere in the ether. Other people's sadness, other
Right.
people's hunger conveys itself to us.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll come to that, ma'am. In the meantime, can you tell me how you don so many hats? I mean, like you've been a professor, you're a
Firstly, I
poet, you're a
don't
travel writer, social. How do you do so many things? I mean,
I don't do many things, the way you see it. I'm not a very busy person,
Mhm.
but there is a lot of time to do things. Like, where is the problem? Everything is connected. If you're writing poetry, then your topics and themes cannot be your sorrow, your loneliness, your love affair, which you lost somewhere. You connect to the people. Somebody who comes to work with you, somebody is cutting grass in the garden, somebody is doing something, you connect. And so I don't think you really need a lot of time to do things, it's just there. Everything is very connected. Your work gets connected, your thinking gets connected.
Yeah, yeah.
So your poetry is connected to the social world outside. And your sense of justice becomes very high when you're traveling. You see, even when I'm writing a travel piece, Anita, I realized that, as we travel, we came across people. It's not places. I don't describe places so much. It's the people. But you came across so many kinds of people. So if you went to the United States, you came across immigrants, you came across, black people, you came across white people, you came across, Desis. So they stay in my mind. So, that sense of justice comes from people I meet, animals, like we're very, very connected to rescued animals. I have 3 rescued animals right now. I'm very fat and comfortable. They were transported from Delhi.
Oh, that's sweet. That's sweet. And it's very heartening to note that you think of everything as connected and you don't think of, so many things as lots of work or, it's very heartening to hear that actually.
Yeah.
Everything
I
is
really
connected.
feel that, whatever I'm doing, like if I'm cooking, let's say, if I'm cooking food, then I feel like feeding the person who's working, Somebody says, why do you feed them? I say, why not? You go to a langar, Gurudwara,
Yes,
or you go to Christmas, and we're a very secular family, Anita, we celebrate Christmas in a very big way. My father, you'd be very interested to know, he would never, we were 4 of us in the family, and I really want to share this. And we're a Hindu family, and he would put a 5th plate on the table. And we used to say, why? He used to say, it's for Jesus.
Okay,
he would say that. He would say it's for Jesus, and that's the kind of, I've been celebrating Christmas since I was a kid. We celebrate Eid by cooking biryani and, stuff like that. And it's, it's so wonderful to, and when we're sick and if anybody's sick, I pray to Jesus. I pray to there's a church nearby, very close to Mera, called Sardana, where Our Lady of Graces is, the church is there. And she's supposed to be, grant wishes. So I have so many friends having COVID this time, and I would sit every morning and pray to Mother Mary. I specifically pray to her. I'd even sit and face the direction of the church, I know where the church is that side. And so there's this deep connectivity with everything. I connect with everything. Absolutely. And so does my family. It's not as if I'm something peculiar. It could be part of being pan-Indian by being in the military, growing up at a time when, now things are so different.
And I don't think there are too many people who can see this connection, there's this underlying connection between what they do, which is why they find that, find whatever they do cumbersome or tiring or boring or monotonous. Whereas if you learn to find that connection, I think, a lot of things will become easy in life.
Definitely.
I think.
Definitely.
I mean, that's a beautiful insight that you've just provided. Thank you so much for that. Ma'am, I hear that you have an initiative called Mera Kitab Ghar.
Yes.
Right? Can you tell us more about it? That sounds very interesting.
Yeah, Mera Kitab Ghar, you see, firstly, I have an NGO, which I didn't start as an NGO because the Venkateswara College, and you're familiar with that.
Yes.
I was staying in the staff quarters, so one part of the house overlooked the campus. And the other part, the kitchen part of it, is a small little house, how these faculty quarters are. It overlooked the Jhuggi Jhopdi colony, where all the slum dwellers were. So I kind of one day realized that I was living in a way, in a world where I was sandwiched between, so much of affluence and so much of accessibility and so much of deprivation. So I began to get these children across, these girls from the slum. I didn't go to the slum and teach. I would get them across to join activities in the college to increase their aspiration. You see, very important, you must increase aspiration. Absolutely. People must be exposed to things. They must see things, take them for, let them see what others are seeing. And then they began to, so many of them have joined the university. Then we have the pujas and all, on certain days and all, and they feed girls, they have this Navratri puja when the 9 days of prayers in India, and they call girls and feed them, which is a very good thing. Everybody said, okay, the girls are getting to eat. But then I realized that they were eating in so many places, but what they didn't have were books. They were very interested in books and storybooks and so on. So we started something called Mera Kitab Ghar, my book thing, the backyard book club. So in my backyard, we just get these kids across, and so many people, I didn't have to buy anything, Anita. You don't need to buy. You just tell people are so generous, their children's books, their shoes, their clothes, and everything. What I spent on was their breakfast or their lunch, which I really enjoyed. But everything else was just given so happily. So the kids would borrow books. I opened a little library. They would write down, one of the kids would write down. Then other children, firstly, they were children from stressed out background. I'd send a vehicle for them to be brought. Then the other children in the colony who came from better homes, economically better homes, they also began to take interest. Then it became an each one teach one thing. They began to learn from each other. So and it's a very simple initiative. All you need is a satchel, a few storybooks, some crayons, maybe some, drawing paper, and just sit down anywhere, even if you teach 2 children. And if you were able to give joy to 2 children, you can read a book, And then maybe if they like it very much, if they like the book very much, let them take it. Let them take it home. Why not? They enjoy it. They give it to their friends, So I love this. I love Mera Kitab Ghar very much. And I want it to be spread all over in villages and so on and so forth,
Right, absolutely. It's a beautiful initiative. Yeah, right. It's lovely because you're imparting, the love of reading and the thirst for knowledge to kids. I can't think of anything more noble than that, actually. So.
And we have so much, and that's the thing, you can really share. You can really, really share. And I want young people to be very much in with this. And I think a lot of young people are much more kinder than we were when we were young. We were not so kind. We were always getting scolded by our parents, for various things. But I think these days, young people, I think when you were in college, you must have been part of social service society.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So in that connection, ma'am, what is it about society that actually inspires you or forces you to respond or react? I mean, society or life is, it comes in different shades. And what is it about life or society that forces you to respond the way you do?
One of the things that strikes me a lot is irony. The irony of life really, is very stark. So you'll find when I write, I'm actually asking questions. It's like when I've written a poem, which I may read if you have time, about the soldier. The soldier's brought home dead. What is it that makes the mother say, I'm so proud of him that he has died?
Right.
I mean, how is she? So that's this sort of ironical thing, and the deprivation, the differences, and I think I'm a perpetual learner and a teacher. I'm all the time teaching. If I feel somebody needs to know, like this vaccination thing. I mean, I really took it upon myself to get after people. At one time, my husband would think, why are you trapping people? I said, no. They must know. They must get well. They must stay well. It's our duty. Or if I know about some scheme that the government of India has, like they have this Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana, which is for little girls, then I tell them about it. I tell them about it, that this is available. I can start you. Maybe I can pay the first 200 rupees or 500 rupees towards your starting this thing for your daughter. And we must carry on. And now, it's got on quite a bit, not because of me, but at least information we can give,
Absolutely.
It's one of the things that you can help, if you ask me, how can we help people, is information. Give them the information and get after them. Nag them. And, we in India, we have staff in every home. Somebody is coming to clean your dishes or, sweep your floors and so on and so forth. So you are in touch with the poor. You don't have to go seeking them anyway. They're right there. You can't ignore them.
Absolutely.
You just can't ignore them.
Absolutely.
So I find when I sit down to write, then that comes, for example, the one that I read about the sense of loss, and the sense of loneliness that comes in the filtering into the thing, is because while we are even wasting food, there are people who are just scrounging. I've started doing something interesting. For example, the people who work for me, or anybody else that I know of, is there, or it's my grandchild, he's 13, who can't afford to, and have their children celebrate his birthday. So we do sort of things like that. It doesn't cost much to do this thing. That is not for us. What does it cost? A cake costs 400 rupees. A kilo of cake would cost you 400 or 500 rupees. What does it matter? If you send it across to a child, and they come. So just lots of things that people can do. So I feel connected. When I write, I feel that it all keeps coming out. These feelings come. So that's why I'm saying that how writing and, the things that we see, the things that we do. So there are no hats, really. They're not separate. They're just part of it. That's how I look at it.
But it's beautiful the way you think, and it's beautiful the way writing, brings out the best in you. I mean, it's such a beautiful process.
Thank you so much.
Now, ma'am, social injustice, as we see, is prevalent in many forms. And from your writings, you seem to be highlighting issues like racism, hunger, lack of women empowerment. So what prompts you to take up these issues in particular? Have they been close to your heart?
Last year, for example, I opened the newspaper, and the first page, had 3 news reports. Okay. One was of a woman, and I've written this poem. I'll send it to you. I won't read it here, but you can read it. And the first one was about this man who found out from some astrologer or somebody that the child his wife was carrying was the 4th child was going to be a girl again.
Mm-hmm.
So he took a sickle and he cut his wife's womb. I mean, he just attacked her. Okay. Mm-hmm. It so happened, ironically, it happened that the kid turned out to be a boy and the boy died. But somehow the doctors saved the mother. Now, the thing is that the next one was about a guy, the other bit of information in the newspaper was about a man who throttled his wife because she hadn't brought enough dowry.
Oh, no.
And every time the witnesses are children. The other children in the family are witnessing this. And the third one was our first naval combat pilot, women pilot, had just been inducted, and they were going to fly the Rafale aircraft, in the Air Force and in the Navy, and that was the third report. No, but I found it's so incredible, that here this is in India with the front page has all these three stories. How can I not write about it? And then what made me angry was the journalist. It must have been a young woman or a man. He seemed to have some sympathy for that man who had cut open his wife's stomach to check, because he said that the poor man suffered because he found out it was the son. What about the suffering of the woman who bled almost to death?
Yes.
So somewhere, patriarchy is so deeply ingrained in us that we can read these things and let it pass. I cannot let it go. So now what do? If I talk to people, they think I'm a bit crazy or something, and why am I dwelling on it? And this word has now come up. Dwelling. Stop dwelling. Stop obsessing. Stop dwelling. So the best thing is you write, and when you write, you sublimate, you get your answers.
Absolutely.
Put it out there.
Absolutely. Writing is a very cathartic process also, I think, because it brings out, a lot of your inner, feelings and emotions that probably you would never, articulate or say outside of the writing, sphere. So in that sense, writing is a beautiful process. I think it's a very cathartic.
When I started writing poetry was because my father said, why don't you write? You're always reading poems. And then when he died, that grief made me write. But I've got out of the personal grief thing. I'm not able to write love poems, for example. Or feel sorry about some love affair that went awry. But I do have great love for the people that I live with. I feel, drawn. And I don't think I'm anything, anybody special. I think there are lots of poetry that I read now. And, since I edit, to be an editor is a pleasure because you get to reading a lot of writing.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. For example, the work that you're doing right now, this is also a great contribution, Anita, because you're getting to talk to me.
Yes.
And you're getting to talk to me, and, I'm learning from you, you're learning from me. And so, these things are helping people to grow.
Yes.
Perhaps you wouldn't have survived this lockdowns and pandemics if literature hadn't come to our help.
Oh, I agree. Completely. That's so true.
It's only in very difficult times that great literature comes out.
Oh, yes. And what do you think we can do, ma'am, to lessen the impact of social injustice in this world? Do you think literature can play a more active role here, or how do you think we can approach it?
It has always played a very active role. Remember, now what is happening is we are reading. How much of literacy do we have, say, in our country? And how many people otherwise in countries that are literate read poetry? You remember recently when this young woman who read out her poem at the president's, United States president's inauguration?
Yes.
And Gorman, is it? What was the name?
Yes.
Yeah. So, because she recited it and so many people heard her, so that impacted. And then so many people began to write that kind of poetry. And so we have a tradition also of reading poetry, which is in the public.
Yes.
Why is it that Hindi poetry or Malayalam poetry or, other languages where people are going out into the open and reading? With English poetry, it's all very, very Victorian of sitting and writing and keeping your poems to yourself. So I think all these Zoom programs where people are now reading poems. So I think we should also write a lot about, that's why if you want to change society, poetry can really help. Because people respond emotionally.
Yes.
People really respond. I keep saying this in many forums, so people may get bored hearing this, but our independence movement was all poetry. A national anthem is poetry. The national anthems of all countries are poetry. Right. And nothing gives us that kind of sense of pride. No amount of blah, blah from politicians can do anything that your national anthem can do for you.
Right. Completely. I agree.
No? I mean, for a sportsman, for example, when he wins and his country's anthem is played, it's a greater moment of pride than even that medal.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I think poetry is very powerful medium. I had actually started something very strange, and I'm saying this some years back. I started writing in Hindi. Of course, in Roman Hindi. The scripts I couldn't do really much.
Mm-hmm.
But then they were more very about politicians and about the environment and so on and so forth. And then what I started doing was I'd go to in Delhi, you have the Mother Dairy shop places.
Yes.
The vegetable. I'd read it out there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they would really enjoy. They were so happy to listen to the poems, Like, for example, I wrote one, we have this crazy gardener we had we're living in Noida, and we had this really nutty guy, but he was very, he's always laughing and smiling. So I wrote on him, but I wrote, it's called, you understand Hindi, but I can maybe say it. It says, "Aao, aao, sab ban jate hain mali." Let's all become, "Aao, aao, sab ban jate hain mali, nahi to dharti ho jayegi khali. Aur fir pina padega zehar ki pyali." We should all become gardeners. Why are we hiring gardeners?
I know. That's a beautiful thought. That's a beautiful thought.
Yeah. I always tell my husband, come, plant one, at least plant one something, into the earth. Put something into the earth. Let's all do it.
Absolutely.
So you can, I think, if you take poetry out into the public sphere, it can be very powerful.
It can be, absolutely. Like you said, people respond at the emotional level. Emotion, that's something that touches them. So, and poetry is condensed emotion. So, that is possibly the best way to reach out to.
Wherever these people are on satyagraha, they're on some kind of a campaign or protest, they all sing. When you sing together as a community, whether you're doing it in the church, you're doing it in the temple, or in the, in the Gurudwara, or wherever it is, when you sing or you recite together, the power of the word, after all, the beginning was the word and the word was God. So, the power of God, that word is so much, we should not waste it.
Absolutely.
We should really use it.
Absolutely.
I mean, the very fact it says, that the beginning was the word.
Yes. That's so powerful. That's so powerful.
Yeah. So we have to be very careful, and we, put it across. I really like to inspire people through poetry. We can inspire, bring a little bit of another person's life in front of you.
Yes.
Yes. That you ponder about it.
Right.
What about you? You write poetry. Tell me about it also.
Yes, my poems are also, I'm also responding to society, obviously. I try and condense strong emotions. It could be, sadness, it could be joy, it could be ecstasy, it could be anything. But I try and express it in a way that resonates with my readers, using simple everyday language, simple everyday objects, so that it can touch people, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I find that like I said, it's a very cathartic process, writing poetry, because, I realize that there's so much in me that is, unsaid, that I can put down on paper. And I'm amazed at the kind of thought process that goes through my mind. So I think poetry is a beautiful way to express.
Yeah. And I don't think, any other form of literature actually impacts the way poetry does. And therefore, during the pandemic, poetry has actually made a difference.
Oh, yes, it has.
Huge difference.
Huge difference, yes. Because at one time, I think before the pandemic, poetry was completely ignored and people didn't, have time for poetry, and, life was, life completely overtook reading and poetry and all that. But I think with the onset of the pandemic and the lockdown, people had more time to read, so they had more time to analyze poetry. And so now poetry is coming back. Everyone's talking about it, yes, writing it. So
the number of books that have been published, the number of publishers come up, Sometimes it gets on your nerves also. But if you are positive about it, then it's a great thing happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Sometimes irritating also, to be very honest, because people are churning out anything and everything you feel. But if you actually,
Yes.
if you're just, and you read it quietly, you find, yes, they have something to say.
Absolutely.
They have something. So one of the things I think poets should not be arrogant. Anita, I'm sure this thing about it. I think that humility is such an important thing for a writer.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
The sense of, that, oh, I've written and my stuff is good and everybody else is rubbish, or refusing to change something. I was just, mentioning that, when I read that poem on Kali, so I had written, by the silver necklace my mother gifted me, so that the Mundamala, the heads were, So my daughter-in-law, she's a designer. She was visiting us and I just go, hold on, let me read it to you. And then she said, why don't you change it to ruby necklace? Why don't you change it to a ruby necklace? Because it'll be more graphic. I changed it, and I found that it really stood out better than a silver necklace. So, I think that we should take people's, viewpoints. And if they say that, why don't you remove this word? It's not going good, or it's giving a negative kind of this thing. I don't think people should get angry and, should look at it. If it doesn't suit them, that's different. But if we are arrogant, then what's the point?
Absolutely. 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 Completely. Right. Absolutely. Ma'am, tell us about your new projects. What are you working on? And what
I really want people to call me by my name. I've forgotten my name, Anita. Everybody calls me ma'am. And I'm beginning to I keep signing my name and saying Roopali. So I'm a poet and my name is Roopali.
Roopali. So tell us about your projects.
The new ones that
new ones that are coming up. What are you working on?
One is, as I said, I'm doing this compilation of, it was a very dear thing in my mind that, I knew a lot of army people and Air Force people who write, but it was not put into any kind of a book. I started that in January, but the response was very poor, frankly. People were not really coming out and giving me anything. And then I also lost a lot of friends, during the COVID. Lost interest. Not interest. I didn't lose interest, but I was, that Josh had gone, that spirit had gone. In the meantime, another young person, she brought out a book, a similar book. And for the first time, normally if somebody had brought out something that I was planning to bring out, maybe I was angry or jealous or something, I was very happy. I was very happy that somebody had done it. You get it? When you are thinking of something and you've not been able to do it, but somebody else has done it, I think we should be joyous about it and celebrate it. At least what you wanted to do has been done. Right. So now she is helping me with compiling it all together, because we've got a lot of now people interested in writing, and wonderful writing. Wonderful. That's a project that's up there. I think by April, May, we should be able to complete that. And the other one is the one that I'm working on is on food, and this is, I'm doing it with Nisam Ezekiel's daughter, Kavita.
Right.
Ezekiel. And we've never met, but she's always putting up pictures of food and so on. So one day I told her, I said, you have poetry on your plate. So then we decided to do this. So this should be also out in another month or two. That's the project. And there's so many other things I want to do, Anita, but I'm very bad, on working on the computer and things like that. I need help.
Don't let that haunt you. I mean, you're doing beautiful work anyway, so that shouldn't be an obstacle.
Not bad at it. I think I'm always, I lost a lot of documents once, Otherwise, I got very nervous, that I pressed something, and nowadays, it's all become so sensitive. These instruments are highly sensitive.
I get you.
They may just disappear. But
Like I said, technology does get, the best of us exasperated. So it's, with technology, you can never tell.
Yeah, and the other thing that we're bringing out, Prasanna and I, Prasanna runs a thing called Fertile Brains.
Yes.
Yeah, so he held a program on 2nd October on peace.
Okay.
So we compiled that all those poems together that people had read, and it's with the publisher, so it should be out anytime.
Right.
Yeah.
I look forward to reading that. I would love to read your works as they come out, because they're so beautiful. They have so many levels of meaning and they connect so well. So I would love to read your works.
If you have I'll send it to you, if you're in India at any
absolutely.
time. Because, the editor sends me some free copies also, no? Right. So I can only share it.
That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. Ma'am,
you can review the book. It helps other poets and writers when you do a review.
Absolutely. Would be honored to. Ma'am, so it was lovely talking to you. I could go on talking, but unfortunately we're running out of time. But please, let's be in touch. Please continue writing and sharing your writings, and please continue your beautiful, meaningful endeavors.
And don't Thank you so much. You put it across so nicely, and it's been such a pleasure because, talking to you has been like, I'm talking to my daughter or something, some young person.
That's so sweet.
Talking to me, that's so nice. Huh? Thank you so much.
Ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you.